Welcome to the Art of Succession podcast with Barrett Young. Join us as we explore the strategies, stories, and insights that shape the journey of leadership transitions and business success. No matter where you find yourself along the journey, this is the podcast where you'll find the tools to make it happen.
Had a good purchase agreement where it was tied to performance and the company did not perform. It was really in 07, 08 that the consulting in the IBM business just really slid off the cliff. We become the IT department for, in West Michigan, over 100 small businesses, or we help the IT department.
My name is Barrett Young, and this is the Art of Succession podcast. My guest today is Mike Ritsema, CEO and principal of i3 Business Solutions in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mike bought his company in 2001 and has made a series of acquisitions along the way that he's going to share with us today. Mike, welcome to the Art of Succession.
Glad to be here, Barrett. Looking forward to the conversation and telling some stories.
I'm looking forward to those stories. So I want to lead off with the question, what interests you most about sharing your experience for the benefit of my listeners here on the Art of Succession?
You know, kind of my phrase nowadays is at my age. And could I give back in some way? Could I help somebody out? And in my experience, and one of my, if we get to it, we'll talk about it, but find a mentor, find a peer group. And if I could help somebody out in any way through my journey and stories, I think that would be very fulfilling for me.
Just a little bit of background leading up to the acquisition of that company. What's your background?
So ironically, I went to college. I dropped out after a year and a half. And it's like, enough of this. I'm ready to get to work. And I ended up selling food to restaurants for 7 years and did well, rose to the top. And I was in a peer group. What peer group? A church fellowship group with an IBM employee who said, "Have you ever thought about selling computers?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And next thing you know, I was interviewing at an IBM business partner and working as a sales guy in the computer industry for IBM. And I had a good run through the 90s, got a little bit cocky, talked to some guys with an IBM business partner firm. Hey, if you're ever thinking about selling, a mainframe firm, if you're ever thinking about selling, I'm interested. And that's how I ended up buying 21st Century Computer Specialists.
Okay, and this was 2001 that you
Yes.
purchased that? Okay. So what do you mean by got a little cocky? Explain that a little bit.
You know, the 90s for technology and IBM, and today IBM, this little computer company, but back then Big Blue, was a good run. I mean, they had some products that were selling. We had a system of selling it. And, I was good at selling. So I saw how the business partner firm I was working for was run. Like, I can do that. And, was generally successful and had paid off my house. And so then up right at the turn of the millennium, I bought this company right after the year 2000.
Okay. So just explain to me the idea of selling computers and then having a business partner. You would sell the computers and then they would service them? Is that the relationship that was here?
I mean, IBM in the 90s decided we're going to use business partners, much like Microsoft, right? We're going to use business partners to grow our business and help us sell stuff all over the world. And so IBM did the same thing. They found business partners to do the programming, the implementation, the setup of the computers, the software. And that's what we did. So that business partner firm, that company, grew and was successful. And I'm like, I can do that.
Okay. Okay. So talk me through that. I mean, that conversation. Were they retiring? Like, what brought about the acquisition in 2001?
So I think perhaps in accounting and perhaps in a lot of businesses, engineering, architecture, I believe there's two different types of people, right? I'm a sales type. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business person. I'm a let's go guy. We can do this. Let's go there. And then you've got the more maybe ponderous people who are more technical. We're going to plan this thing, this service, this execution, but they're not the gregarious let's go types, maybe. So I was that type. And so the firm that I bought was a bunch of really good technical people. But as we approached the year 2000, technology was changing, hardware was getting less expensive, the industry was changing, and they were getting older, right? They were mainframe people. And I bought the company in 2001, in January of 2001. I mortgaged my house, had a home equity loan, had a line of credit at the business, and had a rough year in 2001.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, 90s home equity was just skyrocketing. So it was a bottomless pit that you could always tap into. And then 2001 home equity, or just the home bubble and the internet bubble all at the same time, has got to be damaging for that.
Exactly. So I'll tell the rest of that story. The optimistic sales guy who can just bang down doors and find business went 0 for 9 months. I mean, it was so bad that I would come in. I'll never forget the sales meeting when I had a huge forecast, multiple millions of dollars. And I finally went in a sales meeting and said, how many of these opportunities do we have a quote on the table? And they said, none. I'm like, well, we're not taking any orders if we're not putting quotes on the table. And I just flailed and called, and I would come into the office at 7 a.m. By 9 a.m. I was done. I didn't know who to call. I'd done all the admin work I could do. I was saved by some guys that I ran with at noon, every noon. I mean, my dopamine and
Serotonin
was just sliding off a cliff. And, it was a rough summer of 2001. I was mentally and physically depressed. My wife made me go to the doctor. They put me on medication, and that set me higher than a kite. My wife could barely stand me, but it got me through the summer. And again, fully into the home equity, fully into the line of credit, hadn't taken a paycheck in 3 months. September hits, and I'm like, it's over. And you know what happened, Barrett, on September 11.
How long had this business been around when you purchased it in 21?
At least
if
10
they're
years.
Mainframe guys, were they from the set? Okay, so mid 80s ish. Did they just?
Well, it would have
been
10 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Did they just walk? Was there no like continuity there? Were they come on as employees for a little bit to help transition it to you?
There were 3 partners there. 2 of them I let go, or 2 of them moved on. We bought them out. And then one of them stayed, Jim Seymour, a hero who did not take a paycheck for 3 months straight, along with me. God bless him, just a great guy. But I mean, it was the tech recession of 2001, like you said. Back then we had laid fiber all over America. The .com bust of 2001 is when we laid fiber across the Atlantic Ocean, and companies went bankrupt. I mean, the whole thing, stocks were flying, and it just totally collapsed.
Yeah, it was like leading up to that, anything technology hinting at was easy investment, easy money flying all over the place. And I mean, managed services, you're still required, you're still necessary in business operations at that point, but I'm sure just your customers were also hurting and losing their businesses too. Is that a fair assessment here?
Yeah, absolutely. And really the pivot to managed services came, we call it the pivot today. Back then I'm like, we got to figure out how to make money. but that pivot came in 07, 08, 09. So, September 11, I'm driving down the road, 44th Street in Grand Rapids, half mile from my mom's house. I pulled in, sat on the couch, watched the Twin Towers go down. I'm like, it's over. The company is bankrupt. The nation's economy is grinding to a halt. I need
There
to
will
figure
be
out.
no business in the future. It's all
over.
From this moment forward, everything's changed. So,
And we were, Barrett, at that time, we were selling IBM hardware and doing consulting and programming, and it had ground to a halt in that recession. So but in October, we got 2 orders from 2 big billion-dollar organizations, and it saved the company and turned it around, and we started to go again. We started to come out of the recession, and we found our way home.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I mean, obviously that's what brings you here, but that's great to hear that it was so soon, just that reassurance a month after something like this, that 2 big deals. I mean, a deal can make or break an entrepreneur's psyche when you need it, right? So you're on medication, you're in this brand new company. You haven't even been there a year yet. You've got one of the 3 partners working alongside of you. How did you buy the company? Did you say you had investors as well?
Yeah, we had 4 investors, and I was the biggest investor, and friends and family, right? Borrowed the money, had a good purchase agreement where it was tied to performance, and the company did not perform it, and there was other stuff. I mean, credit cards that I hadn't seen for 6 months, the office manager was throwing them away. There were so many things that were imperfect in the discovery, in the due diligence, that luckily I clawed it all back. And so the previous owners did not get a lot of money, and that helped. But yeah, we had 4 partners or 4 investors, and I had 1 partner working in the business with me.
Okay. What kind of conversations after you had those 2 big contracts come in October? What kind of conversations were you and the partner having, or were you just having, in your own head we need to fix something here. Because you hadn't been having sales leading up to 9/11.
Right.
So how are you entering 2002? What are you fixing here to make it?
Yeah, again, we've got 2 sales types, right? My partner was a sales type, and I was a sales type, and we're out there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're out there bringing it in, and as the recession started to turn, we started finding more business and turned it on. We also had a guy in the office that had this little network business, and he was just working out of our office, and he had a falling out and threw in with us. So we had a little bit of this Microsoft server stuff happening. In the 90s, we would say, don't trust your company to Microsoft Server NT. Trust your company to a real computer, an IBM AS400 or RS6000. So, but we had this little thing happening in networks and so on. It's like, yeah, that's the toy stuff. We're selling the real stuff.
And so this was an employee that you had in the business that had something on the side, or it was just a new department that he was spinning up? Or
it was an acquaintance who had another company and business, and he just needed some office space, paid us some money. He's running his company out of there, out of our office. And then one day his partner went flaky, and he's like, I want to throw in with you. And I said, sure, you work for me now. We'll pay you. You do that business.
Okay. Did you acquire the business, or you just said, come under us with the funding and the cash flow and the security and build it here instead?
Just move it over. Here we go.
Okay. What's that start to look like? I mean, how you're acting, fill me in here, because it's all technology to me, but these are 2 very different approaches, it sounds like, from what you're sharing here. So
it's so fascinating, the journey. I mean, I'll give you a high level that, again, for young listeners, back in the 90s, IBM was the computer company.
Yeah.
And
Nobody ever
frankly,
got fired by recommending IBM, right?
exactly.
Wasn't that
And it was blue, and we were loyal, and I always wanted to work for IBM. And I did take a job with IBM in 1997 because it was my lifetime goal. In fact, in 1990, I told you I dropped out of college. I was on the 15-year program. I say to anybody listening here is, complete your education. It took me 15 years. I went back to college when I got the job at the computer company at the business partner, and took a computer class and a business class, and went, I'm an idiot. I'm clueless. And then I kept going and finished my bachelor's degree in economics, business and economics, over after 15 years, and with kids and going to night classes and so on. But so I was loyal, I was blue, I wanted to work for the great computer company, accomplished that goal in 97, and then bought the company. So then from that point, in our next acquisition, we tried to buy a one-man band in 2005. That's a separate sales story. We did. We bought a one-man band. It was basically a signing bonus. He came with accounts. And then in COVID era, I bought a 5-employee company. And then just a year ago, we bought a pretty substantial partner with 20 employees here. So kind of, I'm a sales type. Organic growth works, and hey, let's acquire in different ways. So IBM was sell hardware, do consulting. That, not in the tech recession of 2001, Barrett, but in the Great Recession of 07, 08, is when the consulting and the applications, Michigan, with 18% unemployment, 2 automotive manufacturers, GM and Chrysler, went bankrupt, were bailed out by the government. That it was really in 07, 08 that the consulting in the IBM business just really slid off the cliff.
Okay. Had you already brought on the Microsoft associate at that point and started to shift a little bit?
Yeah, so this thing's over here. Again, this Microsoft, which if you go back 20 years, it was really, Word, Excel, and email productivity apps. Give me a break. We run the business on IBM ERP software, and then you got these networks with files in them and Word and email. Give me a break. Well, that's kind of flipped in the last 25 years, huh?
Talk to me about how you encourage him to build this other division. At what point did employees start shifting? Like, what's that look like when he's reporting to you and you guys are exploring something a little bit different here?
Yeah, so we merged the two companies in 2004. So bought 21st Century in 2001. Had another IBM business partner firm, very similar to us, a little smaller. We decided to put the two companies together. We had 4 partners.
Okay.
And the
Still
consulting.
one of the original ones of the 3 was still
Yep.
around at this point?
Yep.
Okay.
4 partners, and as we headed into 07, 08, the Great Recession, I didn't know what was happening, but certainly business was slowing down. And we had already bought out one partner who we had a falling out with. And the second partner, I think around 07, said, this thing is struggling, I'm out of here. And when we run the value of the company, it was so low that I rounded up and said, would you take this? And he's like, yeah, fine. And his shares moved over. So we were down to 2 partners, Kathy and me. And as we headed into the Great Recession and IBM hardware was not selling, consulting, we had a consultant at a local company who was there for 10 years. They sent him home. And so we were laying people off in 07, 08, and we looked at this networking division, and this is when managed services started Barrett. This is when a lot of technology companies looked at the market the way I did. And what I learned from peers is, my goodness, Snap Fitness, Planet Fitness, Comcast, we're paying them all monthly. The cell phone, I pay monthly. I should try and figure out how to run a business where we get paid monthly rather than on a project basis or selling big hardware every 2 to 3 months. And we started doing the recurring revenue thing.
Yeah, just a brief 2 to 3 sentences on what managed service provider means in your industry.
Yeah, it basically means that we become the IT department for, in West Michigan, over 100 small businesses, or we help the IT department. So we become the help desk. We keep everything running, patched, secure, productive, and if there's a problem, pick up the phone, we jump on your computer, we fix it. And then secondly, we deliver cybersecurity protection. Let's make sure nothing bad happens.
Gotcha. So project to recurring revenue, did the project revenue have any kind of repeat customer, repeat business? What did that sales cycle look like prior to the shift to the MSP model?
I think it's the reality of, it's something I understand now that when you have loyal customers, the projects show up regularly, right? 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay.
And the hardware is purchased every 3 to 5 years. So, it depends on your definition of recurring revenue, but certainly when somebody's sending you money every month to be like an employee, right? You're the IT department. You're the whole department. You're like an IT employee sitting there. That's a different type of model.
Yeah. Okay. So big server purchases and things like that would be every couple years for these customers. But now you've got a model where you're shifting to, and it's not, the sales, it's not a fist pump price. It's not like, yes, we did it, we closed this huge deal. It's a small trickle effect, but it's monthly by being able to provide that for them. That's certainly, I've seen your industry move that direction. Accounting is about 10 years behind on that. We're starting to see that kind of recurring model. Who are you listening to? Do you have peer groups that you're talking to learn this kind of stuff, or was it all just entrepreneurial exploration?
Yeah, I think that'd be advice number 1 or 2 or 3 that I'd give to anybody listening. And that is, I think I mentioned it earlier, find a mentor, find a peer group. And I say for individual people, young people, or anybody, find a mentor. And I've my son's in the petroleum industry, and a friend of mine's in the industry too. He's like, I feel like I'm calling Doug too often. I'm like, Doug loves it when
Doug probably is. It's so exciting.
Can you give me some advice if somebody calls me and says, hey, I'd like to sit down, I ask you some questions, maybe I could learn something from you? Heck yes.
This is what I do this for.
I will teach you, great young person. So find a mentor. And then I always say, you don't have, will you be my mentor? No, you sit down and ask questions and thank them for learning. Can I call you back in 3-4 months? And could we connect again? Absolutely. If you want to learn from me, let's do that. And it's the same thing with a peer group. I say to any business owner, find a peer group. The peer group can be local with different businesses, CEO roundtable type groups, so valuable. And I'm in one, and it's the Family Business Alliance in West Michigan. And there's about 8 business owners that we get in a room and we can talk about business owner stuff. But I'm also in a technology peer group for 15 years now. And that answers your question. Flying around the country 4 times a year, sitting around a table with technology companies just like mine, and talking about building our business, looking at benchmarks on performance to improve the performance of the business. That is so valuable. I recommend that to any business owner. Find a peer group.
Yeah, that's awesome. 4 times a year. That's a significant time commitment, much less any kind of investment in dues and membership and anything like that. So, for someone looking for a mentor, I know in succession planning, especially, you're possibly buying the business from the person that has been your mentor up until now. And I know when you go to somebody and you're like, I need a mentor, oftentimes there's this perception of they're going to say, well, that's not the way things are done. Or they're going to say, from their experience in the field, say, no, you need to do it this way. And they're going to guide you into there. How would you go about finding a mentor that is still going to encourage you to do things different, especially, external, so they won't just say, well, these customers that we deal with, they won't accept that kind of thing? What would be your recommendation there for finding a mentor like that?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have a good answer to that. I think LinkedIn, for young people today, or for people today, LinkedIn could be an answer to find a successful person in the industry. Certainly networking, and again, we're back to, characteristics or personality. I'm a networker, I'm out there, I'm gregarious. For somebody that's not gregarious or out there, it's going to be a little harder. So definitely, we've had a number of marketing specialists come through here, and there's the American Marketing Association group in West Michigan. And I've gone to these events. They're great. If you're in marketing, you look for that affinity group that you can join, and you meet people. So I think those groups exist in, all large cities. So it's finding groups like that. It could be the chamber. There's lots of places to find people that you could learn from.
Yeah. So just keep testing and keep looking for that right fit. And I know in my experience, I haven't had a mentor, but I've had various mentors. I've had a number of mentors, and it's like, I go to this person for accounting mentorship. I go to this person for entrepreneurial mentorship. I go to this person for spiritual mentorship. It's like I pick and choose who I allow to speak into my life at various times. I hope that you've enjoyed part 1 of my discussion with Mike Ritsema, and I want to thank you for watching The Art of Succession. You can catch part 2 of our interview linked right here.